everybody, in today's video we're going to do a best settings because they've added brand new settings. I'm going to kind of speed through these because I've done previous videos on some of these where I explain some of the minor details, but I'm going to go through everything: my controller settings, my sensitivity settings, the overall graphics settings, pretty much everything that you need to know about in the game, how to set up auto plating if you're on console, pretty much all these different little things, but I'm going to try and breeze through as quick as possible. If you enjoy the video, learn something new, hit the like button, subscribe. Goal on today's video is 3,000 likes, so hopefully you can help me hit that number. We're going to start off as the settings go, and we're going to start off right here in general. Some of these options will not be available to you if you are on console. Some will, but not all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and breeze through some of them. If they're not there, that just means they're not available on console. If you're on PC, you're going to see all of these individual settings, regardless if you're on controller or keyboard and mouse. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the input. I put my field of view at 100. Some people have this myth out there: if you put your field of view up to 120, you're not going to get aim assist. That is not true. I've done a couple videos explaining that. Console field of view is 80. So if you want to feel exactly the same way it does when you switch over to PC, you don't want to have that stretched out view, you can leave it on 80. But when it comes to this game, I play on 100. That is a preference. 100% a preference. You could choose whatever works best for you. In advanced setting, if you have the 80 FOV, this setting doesn't matter. Anything above it, it will make it so it doesn't zoom in quite as much. And I've already did a video on that as well. And it really comes down to preference. It makes it so that when you do ADS, it doesn't zoom in quite as much. So that it'll actually appear as though you have less recoil with a combination of affected field of view with a higher field of view than 80. So it's just really, again, matter of preference. But this is what I've kind of gotten used to. Brightness, I leave that at 50. Heads up display, I put that at 1010. And that's more for the overall HUD, weapon, and stuff like that. It makes it so it kind of appears a little bit tighter on screen, so that when I'm focused on the middle of the screen, I don't have to look as far to see my mini map. It's not a huge difference. It's primarily an impact for people who are on TVs, but on a monitor, everything's on my screen anyways, but it does help out just a little bit. Colorblind, I don't mess with all that. I know some people do this one, and then it makes their game look all kinds of different color, but I don't mess with any of those settings. I'm not colorblind, and there's other settings to actually change that, in my opinion, that I don't think that's necessary. Minimap to square, I know some people still have it on circle. I see clips online. It's like, dude, you're literally getting a significantly more coverage, so you can actually get more information about the world around you when you're using the minimap. Rotation enabled. They had a bug recently where if you're using the heartbeat sensor and you didn't have this to rotate, it would not work. So the game is designed to have a rotating minimap. It's always pretty much been that way, at least in Call of Duty, and that's kind of how that works. When it comes to your overall setting, there is a hidden setting within here so that you can actually plate. Let me go ahead and go over. If you go to kill streaks and vehicles, there's a setting that it says apply all for armor plates. This action is only available in Warzone because that's where you put plates on. If you are on console, this will not appear in the game unless you plug in a keyboard and mouse, whatever keyboard and mouse, plug it into your console and act like you're going to change your keyboard and mouse settings, go into there and then adjust the setting to apply all, and then you can just cancel that animation. I showed kind of how that works in another video where I kind of broke that individual mechanic down and how it can actually be pretty useful, so you don't have to hold that triangle button. When you plug in your controller, it'll still work the same because the setting was already adjusted. So something out there for you guys if that's something you guys want as part of a convenient factor, so you don't have to hold that triangle or Y. Now we go into graphic settings. These are going to again be specific to your setup. Me, I'm a content creator. I record, download, upload, all that stuff at 1440p and up to 144 frames. So if I'm on shipment, I usually can get high frames, 130, 144. Maybe once I get a new graphics card, it could bump it up and I'll be well over 144. But my monitor is set up to 144. And I'm using a 2070 Super. I have the refresh rate set at 144. Resolution is 2560 by 1440. You could change that. It matches my display, so that's perfect. VSync, with the disabled, they do get a little bit better performance, but my recordings do suffer slightly because every once in a while there will be some screen tearing, especially now that I have a little bit faster sensitivity at 2020. Custom frame rate, this is where you can set it in the menus. If you're in the menu, you don't really want to stress out your GPU, so you could always put that lower. I could put that 30 if I really wanted to. It doesn't really matter. And then the NVIDIA highlights, I have it disabled. This is a brand new setting with the graphics cards. They had an update recently, and this allows you to have lower latency between your system input latency. So that's pretty much what it's all about. It does put a little bit more stress on your GPU, but it's a brand new part of the technology of the new RTX cards that they've developed that works with some pretty old cards. I don't know all the way back. I think it's like the 900 cards or something like that and above. So that's a majority of people. Display gamma 2.2. Textures, I have that on normal currently, because if I fire at stuff, it'll appear, and I believe when I turn it off to high, it actually doesn't always do bullet holes on all the surfaces. So you can see there's no bullet holes. So for me, I put that just to normal. You could put it higher if you want better resolution or whatever. This texture filter, I have it in normal, particle, high, bullet impacts enabled, even though when you put it on high, it doesn't, I don't know, it's kind of weird how things work in game. Tessellation, I have it disabled. On-demand texture streaming, and the streaming quality. I've gone and changed both of these. This one's to enabled, and then this one I actually tested side by side. I didn't notice a difference. Apparently how this works in some game, this isn't for when you're streaming Call of Duty. This is what happens is there's some communication between your game and the servers when it actually downloads that stuff while you're playing and applies the textures to certain items. Personally, when I did this head-to-head on low and normal, I didn't notice a difference in game. I put them side by side. My frames in the exact same spot were pretty much the same, so I wasn't getting any benefit. So I figured I might as well put it on low, since it does have an impact on your Warzone VRAM. So I would definitely experiment with that. But personally, I didn't notice a difference in how the textures looked side by side. So I figure, why put that extra stress if I'm not noticing a difference? For the shadows, I put normal, cache spot, disabled, particle light, normal. Ray tracing, it puts too much stress in my opinion. Even though it can look better, I don't really think it's necessary for the game. It doesn't enhance my experience for this type of game. Maybe if I was playing campaign, I'd probably go ray tracing, but for multiplayer and for Warzone, I don't really care. Ambient occlusion, I just put to static objects. You could put it higher. I just have it there. The SSR, screen space reflection, low. And then I have anti-aliasing. I have it to filmic. Depth of field disabled. Filmic strength 0. World motion blur, weapon blur disabled, and film grain set to 0. Audio boost high, that's kind of what I've had it for always. Sometimes people will say boost or boost low. Again, it's a matter of preference. I put boost high. Even with these the SteelSeries headset that I have now, I've adjusted a little bit of the profile. I mean, it sounds good to me. I hear footsteps. That's really all I want to hear without blowing out my eardrums. It just still gets pretty loud when you are coming in on the plane in Warzone, but it is what it is. Master volume 100, music to 0. I know some people have that. There are certain things in the game where you can apply music. That's, again, a preference thing. I personally find the music distracting a majority of the time when the zone's closing or whatever. It's like, I don't need to hear that. Dialogue effects, Juggernaut disabled, and then hit marker sound, I have it on classic. If you have it on Modern Warfare, you like the sound of that, the better. That's perfectly fine. Here's where it gets a little bit different, because I'm going to talk about a setting that a lot of people are confused on, and that is the dead zone. The problem with this game is there's only one dead zone. There should be 2 dead zones because you have 2 analog sticks, one for the movement and one for your aim. One dead zone isn't enough to cut it, and I'm going to show you exactly why and how that works. My button layout, I have it flipped default, so I fire with my R1 and L1, or LB and RB when it comes to the controller, and I throw stuns and all that stuff, C4, with my regular triggers. This just tends to work how I like it with semi-auto weapons. I could spam it a little quicker. I could just spam it. And the option to do this is right behind my webcam. There is a square option where it flips them. You just press square, or what is it? X on the Xbox controller, and you'll be able to flip them. So if you want to fire it with RB and LB, you'll be able to do that. I have it set to that. And since I have a scuff with paddles on the back, I only use 2 of them, one to jump, one to slide. PlayStation does sell one of those attachments where you hook it up and you get a jump and slide button if you want to assign it to that. And you can do that, and you don't need any other settings. A lot of people go tactical. They like the drop shot. You can go bumper jumper tactical, flip. There's all kinds of different stuff. Stick and move. If you're going to bunny hop, you can use the right analog to jump and still maintain your aim. That was particularly popular in Jetpack Call of Duties, but bunny hop is pretty popular in this game. Maybe not so much in the next Cold War. But let's get into dead zone. So this is the one where I think a lot of people are confused on. They're like, well, what's your dead zone? Like, it doesn't matter what my dead zone is. It matters what your dead zone is. And that's what we're going to look at right here. So within Steam, there's actually a controller setup area where you can calibrate your controller. And I'm going to show you how this looks different. So this is my individual controller. And you can see the left stick has a dead zone and the right does. And what happens is that means that my controller should be right in the middle on its own by default, where it's perfectly dead center. But for whatever reason, through time and use, they get worn out. That's why eventually you just need a new controller because those sticks just kind of wear out. I'm going to show you what brand new controllers. I have an Xbox and a PlayStation controller that pretty much I've never used. They're default ones that I got with the consoles and then I never used them. So I plugged in this one here. I'm going to go over here to calibrate and you're going to see how this one looks different. You can see that this one on the left is like dead center. The one on the right is a little bit up, but almost perfect, because they haven't been used, so they wear out over time. So in this particular case, brand new controller, my dead zone would probably be closest to 0 as possible. And if I go to the Xbox controller, we're going to see some similar things. This is just one that my son has played with a little bit. I've never played with this controller. But besides that, when I go over here, same thing. Calibrate. And you can see it's pretty much in the middle. And the dead zone would be higher or lower based off the individual thing. So high dead zone, they're generally bad. Once you get to a certain point, you just need to get rid of the control, right? Because it's not gonna be practical that when you move your left analog, it doesn't move until you come outside of this bubble. Literally within inside this bubble, it's not moving. So when we factor that back into COD, there's only one dead zone, which is unfortunate. The one that I think is a priority, in my opinion, is the aim one, because movement, okay, cool, you're gonna move when maybe you don't want to, but at least you can see it. But your aim, you want it to be as responsive as possible. Right now, there's a problem. If I put my dead zone too low, the left analog will push my character to the right and I'll strafe without wanting to. And you can see that one is larger than my aim one. So all I need to do is find out whatever my aim one is, and it looks like it's gonna be vertical. So if I put the dead zone to 0, my aim will actually go up into the sky. So now what we'll do is look it back inside Call of Duty and you'll see how that applies to my actual aim. So right here, if I put the dead zone to 0, you can see that if I stick right here and I aim, the gun will slowly come up because it's just too low. Right around 7 or 8 is when it stops. But if I put it at 8, the gun's not gonna look up anymore, but my character will strafe slightly. And you can see they're strafing just a little bit. So that's about as low as I can go without messing up my aim, but I will still have a little bit of movement. Then if I want to get rid of the movement completely, I got to put this up to around 10 and the movement stops completely. So my dead zone is probably a little too big for my aim now. So it's kind of really a matter of figuring that part out, but it's 100% based off the controller. If I was using one of these brand new well, not brand new, but never used controllers, my dead zone would probably be closer to 0.01, 0.02, but through use, mashing the buttons, playing with them hours, you end up degrading those little sticks so that it ends up shifting it over a little bit where you have to up that dead zone. Unfortunately, in Call of Duty, they were kind of lazy. In Cold War, they actually have 2 of them, so you can set them independently, one for your movement and one for your aim. But in this case, so I'll put it right around 8. It won't impact that. Sensitivity, it's really a matter of preference. I'm using Control Freaks, so I have a thumbstick, plus I have this little precision pad underneath, which I talked about in a video. That helps me to control my 20/20 sensitivity. ADS zoom, I have that at 70, which is kind of low, but again, matter of preference. High zoom on high optics, that is set to 1. You could definitely adjust that. Aim response curve, standard. Control vibration, disabled. Aim assist, standard. Scale aim assist with FOV. This is on because if my FOV is higher, I want the actual aim assist box that lines up with that player model. I want them to be accurate to what I'm used to, and enabled is how that's done. I did another video breaking that specifically down, so if you have questions, I would definitely check that out. Contextual tap is ideal for Warzone because you just press a button, you open boxes and stuff like that. It just takes a little while getting used to because you jump out of vehicles if you don't hold reload instead of tapping to reload like you're accustomed. Movement, slide is also on tap. This helps tremendously with slide canceling. If you have it on a hold, it can be done, but it's tricky, and I don't necessarily recommend it. I think tap is just significantly easier. Auto move forward disabled, automatic sprint disabled. Some people are running auto attack sprint. I'm not a fan of it. I've talked about the pros and cons. Overall, it's not for me. could be for you. Vehicle camera recenter enabled, and then parachute auto deploy enabled. Some people turn that off just so that you can break your chute a little bit closer to the ground without it having automatically deploying. It's probably a benefit to have it disabled. I'm just used to it enabled, so that's kind of where I have it. The last thing I will talk about when it comes to graphic settings is the NVIDIA settings. And a lot of times people don't realize is when you go to PC, you get a lot more control over the NVIDIA like settings here. So if you double tap Alt and Z, it pulls up game filters. So if I turn these off, you can see how the game looks a little bit dark. I'm gonna add a side by side so you can actually see the split screen. The one on the right side of the screen is with the filters on, and the one on the left is with the filters off. So now what I'm gonna do is run around the map, and you'll be able to see the difference of how much this brightens the map and allows you to see. So see this right here, how it's all shadows on the left. Look at it on the right. It does impact a little bit of your colors, and maybe you get a little bit stuff washed out white, especially when you look at the sun. You can see it looks much brighter on the one that's on the right-hand side. So there are cons to messing with the settings. So I'm gonna talk about those settings just so you can see how much it's lit up in here. So you can see there, even in the corners, when I'm looking in the corner, it's pretty bright and very clear to see, and it's very visible. Like even when I look in this corner, look at how much dark this shadow is right here, and look at how much bright it is on the other side. So it just helps to illuminate, which is a significant advantage in my opinion. I think that it's just consoles are just this night and day difference, and it's not fair. But it is what it is. I'm on PC. And unfortunately, you know, they don't have those options on console. When it comes to the actual settings, there's 3 different settings I've applied. The first one here is exposure 0 with brightness. I have 0, contrast 49, highlights to -100, shadows to -90. You can see how that would affect the game as well. I could even make it brighter, but I do apply a little bit of shadows here. And you can leave that 80, 90. You can play with them yourself because you might have different preferences based off your colorblind setting or whatever you want. Gamma, I have that at 41. And then when it goes to sharpen, I have that set up over here, 60. Ignore film grain. If there was any, if I didn't have it off in the game, it would remove film grain. And then color, I've done this one just so it looks a little bit more vibrant. I put I didn't mess with these color intensity. You could change these so that it changes your game entirely. I didn't mess with those. But temperature, I put to -3.5. If you look at here, you could change the overall color here. Let me go ahead and adjust that one again. And then I also have the vibrance at 28.6, but you can mess with that as well. If you want really saturated, that looks fine right here. 30.6 is fine. Looks good to me. All right. And that's pretty much it for all of my settings from A to Z. Hopefully you guys have found the video helpful in some way, learned something. I did put all the timestamps in the bottom. So if you skipped around, cool, more power to you. Enjoy the video. Let me know by hitting the like button. If you're brand new, looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.